grew up Redmond, Washington. Uh, biggest, I think, background that a lot of people understand me is I'm originally from Hawaii. As far as my family moved from Kauai to the mainland, so a lot of our culture growing up made me stand out here a little bit, as far as schooling and whatnot. But it definitely helped me progress to my perspective of life, afterwards. So, respect for your elders, that translates to your work in management. And I think that gave me a little bit of a heads up to maybe be more appeasing as an apprentice or learning any ways of the trade. But I originally, at 14 years old, really wanted to become a firefighter. That was my main affirmation in life. I really clicked with a lot of what that career route would take you to. And it was my main focus. So I applied to all the programs that they had for young
Was this
kids.
while you're in Hawaii?
No, here in Washington. So Bothell actually is.
When did you move to Washington from Hawaii?
Born and raised here.
Okay.
My parents moved here in '87. So.
Okay, so you were just raised with that culture possibly, but you
Yeah.
didn't actually live there.
Yeah. We go back every year to visit with the whole fam. But
Okay.
a lot of it's just, translatable to, I guess, how I always saw myself growing up. Not too many Hawaiians in Bothell, so a lot of things I liked about the fire department as a young person was, whether it's the teamwork aspect to me was the most driven thing for me, because growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, there was a lot of segregation from who I could hang out with outside of the religion, and being part of a family or team at work to me was like, oh, that's instantly a nice, change, because it's very similar. And so that did give me, I think, a lot of different attributes that helped me in any trade if I were to, pick up one. But not knowing I wasn't going to be a fireman my whole adult life was, a change. In 2009, the housing crash happened.
So were you a firefighter then?
No, so I did, 6 years of training, a volunteer, but not a career paid firefighter.
Interesting.
Quite a bit of a journey to get hired on. That's I think the hump for most people that don't make it. It's just being selected, being picked up, the competition, all of that's just.
So you didn't get selected, even with all your.
You get what you would consider, you were selected, but you weren't high enough to be picked up.
Even with all the stuff you did before.
Yeah.
Because you didn't even come in. That's
You're
interesting.
combating firefighters that worked for other cities. There's a lot that came from California, Vegas. They would apply to do a lateral hire to cities like Seattle or Bellevue.
Yeah.
So being a volunteer is, is a great advantage to someone that doesn't have any experience, but you're still on a scale of guys with professional experience.
Interesting. So before we get into your current profession, I do like to dial in on high school, what that was like. Were you into sports, or what kind of teenager were you?
I would have been the Bo Jackson of our generation. But again, with the whole Jehovah's Witness culture growing up, you're really supposed to be focused on, God primarily, and not have any other secular activities.
Really?
So yeah, my parents, really shunned away from doing anything outside of academic school.
So did you go to public school?
Up until sophomore year. So
Does Jehovah's Witness have like private schools?
no, it's just more.
There's not enough
they're
of them?
homeschooled.
They're homeschooled.
Majority of them are homeschooled.
So you grew up homeschooled.
Yeah,
Not a whole lot of
split.
not a whole lot of social interaction outside of church.
Not in high school. Yeah, exactly. So, you can only imagine how close your friends group.
Yeah,
is.
you have a very small bubble.
Yeah, for sure. And I think from the outside perspective, sure, it might have helped me. I probably could have been a different person, but it would have been cool.
Do you still practice that today?
No. I stopped at 18. Retired. I put my 18 years in and I'm done.
But is it that religion, or is Mormon and Jehovah's Witness the same thing, or are they different?
I think they're similar. I think they're both Christian based, but definitely different.
They are different. Because one of them, don't they encourage people to leave the faith for a year? And
I think
then
that's Mormons. Yeah, I think they.
I don't know if they encourage it, but they kind of like, we won't count those sins against you for that year. And you're like, what? Okay.
Oh man, that was news to me. Let me try that out.
So a lot of them come back, and then a lot of them don't, because they're like,
Right. Yeah, my realization was, there's different goals in life for everybody as they become an adult, and having my whole juvenile life be Jehovah's Witness, I felt like I experienced enough about it. And then I'm having kids. I'm gonna think about, okay, do I want that in my life like I did myself?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm just like swaying away.
Yeah. So, your junior, senior year, you were at a public school?
No. So I last grade was eighth grade. Basically all high school is homeschooled.
Oh, so you were in public school growing up.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that's weird because a lot of times you do homeschool growing up and then you switch.
Weird guy, man.
So you did public school growing up, but you weren't able to be involved with a lot of the extracurricular stuff.
None of it.
No sports.
No sports.
That's
Yeah. Video games is the
But they let you play video games?
you're at home, so that was the main, I think, directive. But yeah, I think I would have loved to at least participate in sport.
Hey, you could have been to whatever his name
I could
is.
have been to yeah, could have
Never-
been Rhea, one any of them,
Yeah. Because there's a few dudes that have been coming out of Hawaii that are killing the football
Yeah,
game.
football game I think was your main sport, in Hawaii at least.
Yeah.
Baseball's close second, but I would have loved it all.
Yeah.
Just being part
That's unfortunate, man.
yeah. You live and you learn.
Yeah. So 18, you were set on becoming a firefighter.
14.
Yeah, but 18 is when you finish high school. You were still on that path, or did you have another job while you were working?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, because I was homeschooled, I was able to do those programs. It was, either Mondays and Thursday nights, and then you can do ride-alongs during the
Mhm.
day. So you could, as a 14 or 15 or 16-year-old and up, you could take a shift with the fire department.
At that age.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can still do that.
Yeah, I remember my first call. I was 15, and it happened to be a DOA. I was like, "This is my first call. What in the world?" Just seeing a dead body at that age was, very surreal.
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, I love this. This is
Forces you to grow up.
forced to grow up, and sort of decide to me the maturity that you should have.
Yeah.
That's sort of the last place to be immature.
Yeah.
On a fire scene or whatnot. So
Did you know at 18? So you opted not to go to college at 18?
yeah, I really didn't. I wasn't from a family that did college. Per se, it's not really our goal.
Yeah.
My sister did go to Lake Washington Tech, and that was hard for her. So I think that was for me something that, all right, well, if I find something better as far as career-wise that I
Mhm.
could take advantage of, I'll do it right away. And that's when I first got my tiling job.
So you did tiling at 18.
Yeah, actually, the guy hired me at 17 and didn't put me on the papers. But when I was 18, then I was on.
Nice.
But yeah, it was a really cool experience because, I was away from home. I was able to drive. Those are the small things about becoming an adult that was really withheld to me at a young age.
Mhm.
My friends were all getting their license at 16 and
Mm-hmm.
going with friends. I can do that until I had a job and I could pay for my own insurance. Like, that was the way my parents held it.
Mm.
But yeah, I felt instantly like an adult, which
Do you, looking back, do you look at back at that time frame with animosity, or more just like it is what it is? I'm not going to be upset about it.
yeah, I
It
think
was a
that
little sheltered, but
big time shelter. Absolutely. That's how I describe it. I mean, I think your rebuttal and your retribution to all of it is immediately hitting when you become that adult. So when I was 20, I would have been completely sour
pretty bitter.
perspective about it all. So
Yeah.
but as you go through life, you sort of see yourself as a parent.
Mhm.
You become one and see my parents, what they did. I'm like, all right, they weren't trying to screw me over, but maybe it wasn't right for me.
Yeah, the thing, there's a common phrase that I've been thinking about more often lately. It's they did the best they could.
Yeah.
And initially that's like, sure. But now that I'm a parent, it's like, well, there's this thing called you can go learn,
Mm.
right? And because we always like to just say, oh, they did the best they could. And it's like, well, the best they could. I'm not saying necessarily your parents, just the concept of parenting,
Right.
whatever it is. And it's like, well, they best they could. Just like as a technician, right? You're constantly learning.
Yeah.
And so if you like, it's all furnace, like, I did the best I could. And it's like, but did you learn to actually go do that thing? And it's like, no. Well, then the best you could wasn't that great.
Right.
And so we use that excuse a lot. And it's like, as a parent myself, it's like, I want to learn about how being a better parent, how to do all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but it sounds like where you're at in life now, you don't hold that against them anymore, but
Yeah, not so much. I think a lot of it's self reflection about what decisions I did make to get to this point.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of luck into it, a little bit of chance and opportunity of when things happened. But, for instance, that 2009 crash, it's when everybody lost their jobs. There wasn't any hiring in fire
How old
department.
were you at that point?
19.
19.
And so my drive for being a firefighter really went down because you can't even get a regular job. How am I going to get a
Right.
government job? So I started looking into trades. I was always hearing that electricians make money, plumbers make money, but none were hiring. And back then, it was good old Craigslist. It was the best way to get classified ads for a job. And no Jobster, no Monster, anything like that was out there. I just had to do one individual resume send. And oh, if I sent my own resume to myself today, I would have been cringe. A lot of differences as a young adult you don't realize. But yeah, I did get picked up as a install helper, so essentially an apprentice that's not yet an apprentice. With a local company up in Mukilteo, and that was a big change because it's a structured, I would say, a trade that you do have to follow a certain amount of requirements to get to this level of certification.
And what was it exactly?
HVAC.
Okay, so it was HVAC. Okay.
It was HVAC, yeah. I was really bummed because it wasn't electrical, but it's close.
Yeah.
I had no clue what HVAC was, really. I thought it was just a filter company. But yeah, I wouldn't say I got sucked into it. I just took the opportunity and I started to see.
And it was an ad on Craigslist?
It was an ad on Craigslist, yeah. It was just more one of those companies that has a large hiring wave. They bring on 10 people at once. 3 months later, 2 of us might still be there. But yeah, it was great. I definitely took a different approach from working at the tile job for a couple of years. A lot of the firefighter experience just gave me a perspective of who I work with. And I'm asking, these guys that are in their mid-20s and I'm fresh new 21, and asking about their life. Do they have kids? Thinking about what do they drive to work? Just seeing like, hey, how comfortable is this career for someone that's been here for 5 years? As a young kid, you think about that.
Well, I would say most kids don't. And that's interesting. At that age, you already have the self-awareness to think slightly long-term.
Sure.
And so that was good that you did that because most people don't. Most people don't have the self-awareness to, not know, or to know they don't know everything. And you already had that at a young age. So good for you.
Very, very different young age. I think I compare myself to my peers that I did know through homeschool or previous school that. And I was divorced at 20 years old.
Oh, yeah, you'd already been married.
Already been married, man. Just, really going life through the fast lane.
How long were you married for?
Like 16 months, barely after your first anniversary. But
did they caution you not to get married? Did anyone ever caution you? Whoever?
I would say it's encouraged 1,000% to get married.
Because of your religion?
In the Jehovah's Witness, community.
So how old were you when you got married?
19.
Would you tell your 19-year-old son to get married at 19?
Absolutely not. I would. I'm probably the best parent about marriage at a young age because I was the worst married young man.
Yeah.
At that age, I just didn't realize how much your life changes, emotion, mental, physical, even. Things just don't have solidarity at 19 till 25.
Yeah.
Maybe just a good range, but yeah, the mental maturity is a big one that was not there at 19.
Yeah, and getting married at a young age is really tough, and over 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of it has to do with no matter what age you get married at, but a lot of people don't have the tools or the framework to build their marriage off of.
Yeah.
And which is why a lot of them fail. And when you tie that to being young and immature, you're increasing your odds of
you're already behind.
A high likelihood of failure. Now, 50 years ago, people got married young, but it was different back then.
Right.
Because back then it's like you didn't have the whole world at your fingertips to compare yourself, to see other people. It was just like, let's just ride or die, right? Let's figure it out. But in today's world, it's very different because you're exposed to somebody. You have so much more stimulus.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah.
So 16 months. When did you know it was going to end?
Pretty sure it was like when she packed up and left and said, "I'm divorcing you."
But
obviously,
were there warning signs before that?
Oh, for sure. I think the fighting just the verbalizing, the things getting out of control, more and more frequent. I mean, there was just so uneasy terms of being roommates
Yeah.
that are expected to be
And
adults.
she was young too.
Yeah, we're the same age. And
Was she from, what was her background?
Oregon raised,
But she was Jehovah's Witness as well.
Jehovah's Witness. Her parents were very heavily religious minded. Her dad was an elder, what you consider
Yeah.
the high up guys. And, I felt like there was a portion of my marriage that I was married to her parents. I'm talking to her, but there's a lot of suggestions from mom and dad that are just like, well, it seems like I'm attacked quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm expected to be this man and you're not doing it. So this is the repercussions. I'm like, dang, mom and dad is in the room, but they're in Oregon. But, as a young guy, you sort of have these pride statures and you don't take criticism well. And if your wife is like emotional, it's hard to deal with it,
Yeah.
and you're expected to solve all that. So, but yeah, I definitely learned a lot, a lot from that. I think that's probably one of the biggest blessings about my youth, my low 20s, was that going through that and not spiraling to think worse of myself.
Yeah.
There's definitely side effects to being divorced, and everything that comes with it. It just takes time to pan out and get better, but it's a huge advantage, I think, for me to be a husband and a father.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, not a whole lot of people are getting married at that age and getting divorced already.
Yeah,
So that ended.
that ended
Did that crush you?
big time.
Pretty
Like mental, I can't be the same for a long time. Like firefighting was out of my reach at that point.
Yeah.
It wasn't something I
So
could.
failed marriage, failed dream.
Yeah,
Pretty depressed then
Pretty
in your early
depressed.
20s.
had like my first run-in with the police. Never thought I'd ever go to jail. Like going to jail for 16 hours was another like crazy experience. But that's when things started going up.
Yeah.
As far as just self-explaining what I need to improve on if I want to.
How did you, when you have that many L's in your life, how did you work your way out of it? Was it self-reflection, or was it someone from that you knew that was like,
Motivation. I was sick of it. I was tired of being poor. I was homeless for a good 2 months,
yeah,
living in my car with my dog. Yeah,
Really?
We've all got those stories. Well,
Yeah.
Legit, I had that moment
yeah,
for 2 months, and that was to me it was like, oh great, I can save on rent. It was uncomfortable. I'm showering at the Y, like I felt like a bum. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But I didn't have kids. I just had me and my dog, so I did that just enough to where I was sick of it, and I didn't want to continue to be
yeah,
thinking about money all the time.
yeah,
And then just to be happy and hanging out with friends that I wanted to, but like, bro, I got $10 in my name.
yeah.
I'm not gonna.
But you didn't have a job at that point?
I did, but I mean, just everything cost-wise was not paying. I was being paid $14 an hour,
Yeah,
and that was $2 more an hour I was being paid prior to that at the tile job.
yeah, yeah.
So, a lot of like what you expect, I guess, a career to be for me wasn't there right away.
So how old were you when you were living out of your car?
20.
20.
Yeah,
So you went to the school of hard knocks,
yeah.
and like for some people, pain should be enough motivation for people to change. Because sometimes there's like, how do I change? And it's like, are you in enough pain to change? Because I can tell you the facts,
Right.
but unless you actually want to change or have the motivation or drive,
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of that can back lean, or however you want to say, is your parents could be the ones to step in and help you at that point.
yeah,
My parents got divorced when I was 18. Like, so as soon as I was out of high homeschool,
yeah,
they split up. So my dad moved back to Hawaii. My mom's over here still, but we don't talk because of the whole separation.
so you were on your dad's side of all that,
Yeah.
or no one's side?
It was not even their splitting up. It was more the religion. When I was exiled from Joe's Witness community, my mom couldn't communicate with me at all.
So when someone does that and you're in that religion, they don't even want you to, it's like excommunicated or something.
Exactly. It's
They don't even
fellowship.
So even if it's your own family, they don't want you interacting. That's so crazy.
Yeah, they encourage you just to more keep it straight to the point. Hey, come back to meetings one day and show your repentance, come back and get reinstated. And that was just all I could talk about, and I didn't want to talk about it. So there wasn't much me and mom could talk about. So, there wasn't too much that I had mentorship wise. I have older siblings, but nobody wants to bring up those problems to your older brother or sister unless you
Yeah.
really had to. And I didn't have that limit to reach out to them. I just felt like I was good.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because it's like a lot of people think people have life all figured out. And the more I do these podcasts, the more I'm learning most people don't have life figured out.
No, figure it out on the fly.
And when I interact with people, young people today, they kind of get paralyzed with, I haven't figured life out yet. And it's like, dude, you're not really, some people do.
Mm.
Some people have that. I mean, you want to be a firefighter, but you just kind of still have to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you keep moving forward, you tend to then eventually find the path that you're supposed to take.
Right. I'm a very spontaneous person
Mm.
and anything in life. I go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
I have a goal, but I'm not specifically wanting that picture of where I'm going to be in a year to be very specific
Yeah.
and tedious to it. If that's what my angle is, I'll aim there, but I may end up being something else, like becoming an electrician.
Yeah.
Didn't get to be an electrician, but hey, I'm sort of one, and I'm not disappointed with not meeting those exact goals.
Yeah.
So meeting a partner that's okay with that kind of personality and then, day-to-day life, it's very unique, but I think it's perfect if you do find that
Yeah.
partner.
We'll get into your second marriage. Or was it your third?
Second current, last, whatever you want to call it.
All right. So now you're working as apprentice HVAC.
Yeah.
How was that? Was it?
Loved it. I mean, it was great just to work differently. I'm not, carrying tile. That was my whole
Backbreaking,
time. Yeah, carrying heavy boxes. But here you're learning technical things. You're actually getting tools that are more tailored to being instruments and why are they specifically used for these things. And I loved it. I felt like I had a purpose and I was looked at as a professional in a trade or in a work craft. And that was like, oh man, I finally have something that I can work towards. I'm in, my foot's in the door already. But then realizing I'm not an apprentice, I'm a helper. What does that mean? Apprentice to them is someone that they're fully investing into you with everything they can, knowing that you'll be with them in X amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
Helper, you're sort of like the intern. You get paid, but you're not getting paid great.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sort of just being given the things that are meant.
Do they still do programs like that? Or do you think they do that just because it's like, before we fully invest in you, we want to make sure you actually want to do this?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And I agree with that. I mean, from my perspective, I think every kid or young guy that's trying to start a career, I'm like, oh, if you and I click personality-wise, I'm already in. He's already my apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Year in, year after, I'm learning, okay, maybe reel it back with the fully dumping investment to someone new, give them time. So I do agree with that structure. But some people come with that experience and maybe they're starting apprentice 2 or apprentice 3.
So you don't even have to go to an HVAC school. Most of the guys do. Most of it's on the job training.
Yeah, it's a common misconception that you have to go to a tech school or get a certificate before you start. There's no requirement for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd say 90% of what you are going to master does not come with schooling. It comes with the work experience.
And that's what with college, you go to 4 years of most of it useless knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You ask any college kid as soon as the day he graduates, can you remember anything you learned? And they'll be like, no, unless it's like a doctor or whatever.
Sure.
But with, going straight into a trade, literally what you are learning, you're doing that same day. So you're going to remember it more, and it's practical in regards to do this to this, and then you do that, it works.
Correct. Yeah, I think there's a lot of...
Because you're learning. And then that's the thing I think people don't realize is you never gave up on education or learning. You're just learning something that's practical and getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay in that phase of who am I?
5 years.
So you were an apprentice for 5 years?
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Not the existential who am I, but the,
yeah.
We can zoom out to that.
Career-wise, I was there for about 2 years.
So 2 years, you were kind of...
I was the helper.
at some point we were like, oh, I want to be more than this, or did the company?
Oh, I want to be more than this than day two.
So the company made you
I
just
asked. See, the thing was, you start to learn the business, and
right.
what they are really pushing you to do is what's going to be an advantage for the company.
Hmm.
This particular company had a culture of, having good core values, doing things right, but then you can only do this if they sign this paperwork to approve of that quote cost. A lot of price strategy. So essentially, you have to become a salesman doing your skill,
Hmm.
which was, a little different. But for me, I just tried it because I love talking to people. I was, a very friendly person. I'm really easy to get along with at a short-term job. You're there for,
I know the company is it the company we've talked about before? We're
yeah,
not, we won't say their name, but I met one of their sales guy in the sauna at the Y, and I asked them, I was like, what I thought was interesting was he's never even done an install.
right,
And it's like, how are you like, to me, if I'm selling something, I want to at least know what it is I'm
sure, yeah,
selling, right? In my line of work, I can sell it because I do it.
right,
It's not some theory. It's
right,
like I do this on a regular basis.
exactly.
So I thought that was really interesting that the guy who's going out and getting bids and stuff never even done an install. And I was like, maybe you should do so. But he's like, they don't need me to.
Sure. And you still walked out the sauna buying an AC and a furnace.
I did not. He did not. He did not sell me anything.
Not yet. The follow up. That's the main key.
He has a lot of follow up because they ended up doing an install at one of my rentals,
Okay. Yeah.
and he was good at following up because
Good key.
the owner that was a whole nother story that they had drama.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I mean that was one of their directives, and then I just cut up onto it, and I liked it because they give you a spiff. As a young guy, I'm thinking like one time if I can talk to a customer and they want this product for electrical protection, whatever it is, I saw that $25 for the spiff added to my daily rate of hourly. I'm like, oh, I'm not making 15, I'm making 19 an hour.
right.
And that was how weird I was with numbers, and just became more of a regular thing that me and my lead, we would always split it, but he was fine with it. It didn't take me too much time, and it was just an extra thing we do for 30 minutes, and we get to come home with a little more money every week or every 2 weeks.
So I think we'll get into that more later, but hitting on if someone is getting an estimate and you see that there's all these little bells and whistles, like when you buy a car, here's the car, but then here's all this extra stuff with it.
Right.
How does someone know that this person who's trying to sell me on this service and product has my best interest at heart, or
Yeah, that's a good point.
or they're just trying to make some extra commission on the back end?
Right. Max out. I mean, I've always been on that side of it, whether it's my car getting worked on. I don't really know, like, hey, is all this needed? And there's two different proposal people or technicians, mechanics, whoever you're talking to is, if I can realize what he's saying and I learn it, I understand why he recommended this to protect what just happened. Okay, great. I can avoid this big bill that I'm gonna have to pay to fix it, but the protection item is going to extend this much more life. And I think that's where a lot of salesmen that aren't as connected with people will lose on that opportunity. I'm not trying to sell you my whole book of add-ons. I want you to at least know that this problem you've had in the past, that you complained about, or you might have already had issues with multiply, it can be avoided with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure, there's 10 more items I can sell you on, but I don't think you need it.
Yeah.
And
So maybe you draw the line in your sales as just be like, hey, these are stuff you may not need, where other companies will basically shove it down so you have to get it. And I think that's where people get kind of tired of buying cars because they're just like, dude, I just literally want the car.
yeah, I saved $2,000 for buying this truck that doesn't have to get the pulsing brake, and it was already built in the price. I said, oh, what's this? I forget what they called it, but they go, oh, every dealership does this automatically, so it's a safety feature. Could I take it out? Yeah, it takes off $19.99. Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'll tap my brakes 10 times to do the same thing. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of what strategies that are out there that are really, it makes you think about how many other companies are doing that and getting away with it.
Yeah.
They build it in so much, they probably fluff it, and they don't really explain what you're buying.
Yeah.
And sure, it gives a bad impression on all trades.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of how things evolved, over time is companies have to sell a lot, for supplying overhead or changing, the business life out there. You see so many advertisements. Where does that money really come from?
Right.
It's got to come from somewhere, and our consumers are the main ones, obviously.
Right. Well, I just saw California just increased their minimum wage,
It's like
and
$90 an hour.
it's 20 now.
Oh, wow.
It went from 16 to 20.
Wow.
And so the experts who don't run businesses, who don't personally responsible for the increase, oh, it's going to work out great.
Right. Right.
According to our analysis, it's amazing. And then the people that it actually affects are like, well, actually, we have to let go of workers.
Mm-hmm.
We have to shorten our hours.
Right.
And so what the experts are saying, oh, it's no problem. The people who it affects are like, it is a problem because I'm going to actually hire less people now.
Right.
Because like you said, that someone has to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
The customer is going to pay,
Mm-hmm.
but also we are going to have less workers.
Right.
So that law that was supposed to help people, if anything, it's
hurting the ones that get hurt the most.
yeah, because the people who made the policy in the first place have never run a small business.
They're never affected by it, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd say. So yeah, no, it's true. It's frustrating as a small business owner to go through all that when there's a chain reaction.
Yeah.
The inflation rose up these last few years. I was getting so many kickback from clients that are, flabbergasted that pricing went up 20%.
Right.
And then to me, I'm just looking at numbers and going, I can't do it for that price and be open in 2 months. Like just the graph is telling me you're going to be out of money in 2 months if you don't increase certain things. And I'm not going to guarantee that my guys are going to start selling furnaces every time they see it broken.
Yeah.
That's not my core value, if you will. But, it's just being more reasonable, what my team's capabilities are and doing it our way. I have to do an adjustment that's automatic. Our standard pricing just has to go up. And yeah, unfortunately, consumers don't see that unless they're a business owner themselves, or maybe they've been management.
Yeah.
They get it.
Yeah.
They're not happy about it.
Yeah. I mean, when the cost of materials go up, there's nothing much you can do about that.
Up with it. So, it's a every 5-year change and a struggle, but hey, we all make through it somehow.
Yeah. So you were apprentice to apprentice for 2 years.
Mhm.
And then what was the next stage after that?
When I started making those add-on sales, the service manager, so I'm in the install department. All I do is strictly replacement of equipment, furnaces, air conditioners. I did apply to be a service technician, repairs, maintenance, and that was right along the lines of what they want.
Mm-hmm.
They want someone like you to be seeing 5 faces a day instead of 1, and using the opportunity to upsell.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I consumed that. I was that. I wanted to be the best technician, and that's where I started to learn how to be a selling tech for a solid 1.5 years when I started to be a technician.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that really opened my opportunities of life. I became a little more less dependent on how much I make and just seeing the commission side of it. And I could sort of decide what I wanted to make, how much I wanted to work to get there. And then, yeah, that's when outside of life can change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming out of this hole, this rut.
Mm-hmm.
I have an apartment now.
Moving up.
My dog has a bed, the life was looking good, but that was a big advancement for my life career-wise.
So this is what, mid-20s now?
Yeah, I was about 22, 23. And yeah, that's where things clicked.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, wow, I see what husbands and fathers make.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there, and I'm not a husband or father yet. So,
well, you were a husband.
Yeah. Well, retired, short term. But yeah, that was a big, I'd say, jump for me to realize what this trade and this industry provides.
Uh-huh.
It was real money. Yeah, I've been through a lot of what do you call those pyramid schemes. I was selling knives. I was selling Kirby vacuums. There's just so many of these programs where, yeah, you show up, there's 20 of us applying for one job, and it's not a job.
Yeah. Someone's making money,
You're
but
paying us first.
yeah, someone's making money, but not you.
Exactly. But yeah, that was definitely one of the changes I made to where I was done with those kind of Ponzi schemes and
Yeah.
just tried to find trade. And luckily, it rolled into what it is now.
So now you're an apprentice.
Um,
You were an apprentice, and then you
then a service tech.
then it's, so you went apprentice of apprentice, then apprentice, and then an actual tech where you can fix stuff,
Correct. And
repair.
that's the same journey line, if you will. Apprentice wise, you would become a journeyman of that rank in that department. Service techs, it's not really run that way. It's more of, yeah, you're either a tune-up technician, then you're a diagnostic technician, and then what some people say is a senior tech. You can do it all.
Mm-hmm. So did you become a senior tech there?
I did not. No, I ended up losing my job there, moved to 3 different companies after that, same position as a service tech. And then
What, for someone that may be in that position where sometimes you feel like whoever initially took you, you should have loyalty to them.
100%, yeah.
And so what was that thought process for you to then switch companies?
It wasn't my choice, that's for sure. It was just
Okay.
more of you're a number, though. You weren't.
Sometimes it's forced upon, it was forced upon you
Yeah.
to leave.
I wasn't a valued asset. Let's just say that. I mean, this is a large company where nobody knows each other outside of work, unless you've been there for 20 years, and there's 3 or 4 of them. But yeah, I did look for a company that I wanted that smaller aspect.
Mm-hmm.
You know your boss.
So you end up working for 3 other companies?
After, yeah, my initial. Correct.
Okay, so how long were you with the second company?
I was there a year.
Why, for someone in this industry or thinking about it, why would you switch from different companies?
Yeah, I think you always realize grass greener on the other side. After my first move, things were great that I wanted from this company. Downside, it was a smaller, newer company. Their organization wasn't nearly as on top par from this huge structured
Mm-hmm.
dynamo of a company I worked for initially, and that got on me. You know, the mishaps from management affected my paydays.
Mm.
And that happened too much where I'm like, okay, it's a family business. I get it.
Were you still learning stuff at that point?
No,
So you were on your own just fixing stuff?
I would say I was their second most experienced guy there.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of, teaching that they needed to give me. It was just more show me the ropes of how you do it
Yeah.
and how I can make money. And then when things just weren't perfect, I didn't feel like I was in a very comfortable company to take care of
Do
me.
you think that's pretty common in the trades jobs? People switch from companies to companies?
It's a 90-10 ratio of large companies versus small companies. So you're going to see a lot more smaller size companies. To me, smaller is 20 or less.
Mm-hmm.
Anything larger than that, it's a different game and different structure. So the first company was the only large company I worked for.
Mm.
The last 3 were all small.
Okay, so the third company, what was that experience like?
It was a much more cutthroat, much more faster pace, but they paid the most. I think some months I would get paid more there than I would.
Was it because they charged more per install?
No, they were the most cheapest for charging on installs. They were a volume company versus a quality based.
Mm.
So, their install teams are doing 2 installs a day. Normally you do 1.
Were you doing the installs or were you the sales guy?
I was primarily a service tech, but then I would sell a furnace at a service call or sell an AC.
So would you be the one that did the install, or you would get
No.
commission for selling
Correct. Yeah, you just get commission right off the top for.
that? So if I'm a homeowner, how do I know that who's coming to my house is just trying to sell me a new product versus, no, this one will work and it will continue to work for the next few years?
Yeah, you ask those questions. And I think a lot of homeowners are scared to ask that to a tech or, a professional that's in your home right on the.
Are you at that point in your life, would you have lied to get the sale?
No, at that point,
Or you had the ethics to be like, this will last you a few more years?
I will say like the first year of being service tech, I didn't know a lot of the issues or know a lot of solutions. So yeah, I would make it up, fake it till you make it kind. And yeah, a lot of times it kicks back. It backfires on you and you're just like, all right, I got to learn it. I'm just not motivated enough to learn what I need to learn to sell this product or fix it correctly. But my ethics were always, I personally would say it's more solid than your average because I'm more shameful to have ever been caught being a liar with your job.
Mm-hmm.
Basically trying to fake something to sell something.
Mm-hmm.
That just gives me like the anxieties that I don't like to handle. So I'd rather just find something that I do know and try to sell as much as I can. If it's valid, I can find a problem and I'll always make that recommendation. And that's how I just became more, I think, knowledge wise, the more you know, the more you can sell.
So how did you make more money at that company if they had cheaper installs?
They
Or
had
were
a
they
flawed structure. I will say this: they probably didn't plan for a 5-year expansion and growth. I mean, the first mistake they happened on installation, they lost all their margins. Their profits are gone. They might be paying to do the job. And I realized they realized that year after I was hired. Just things aren't perfect. Our guys are fluctuating. People are being fired in front of me. Like literally, you're gone, and I'm just over here working the computer. I'm hearing these guys just slam doors. And then that next Friday, that guy's back. So that was a very I would say unorthodox company. The owners weren't as professional as you'd expect, but they knew business. They knew their jobs. They were very proficient at what they did, and they had a good influence on people.
Okay, so you're there for a year. Did you get burned out, or what made you switch there? Just the aggressiveness, or not?
The aggressiveness, and one of the owners did just pull me aside and let me go because of a fake review.
One of those,
Yeah.
literally based off a review.
Yeah. And I had friends that worked there still, and they told me straight out, like, hey, they just didn't know how to let you know they couldn't afford you because what you were selling wasn't making money. And they don't want to approach you, I guess, directly and say, hey, here's what we need you to start selling these for. And this is the numbers you're not making. They just sort of on the fly will get rid of people.
Made up a reason.
All right.
So you were selling products that weren't as profitable for them?
Yeah. I mean, they just had a very strict book, furnace, X amount, 5,000, AC, 8,000. No matter what it was, that's what they told you to sell. And not all jobs are the same. So I can only imagine, you're losing a lot on this job. You might be making a little bit here, but
So they weren't looking at jobs nuanced at all.
right. They weren't really selling as a salesman should, especially as a service tech. I personally think that was overpaying as service tech. There should have been a salesman that gets that lead from the service tech to do it more detailed.
Would you say a good sales guy should have experience handling the product, or at least
100%.
basic install?
No salesman should not know how it's installed by their own experience.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of like, when he told me he had never done one, I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's weird.
But I mean, there's ways you can talk about it, but you don't really know what you're saying, but
Right.
it could be right. I think a lot of the trainings that they have weekly, they keep it sharp about how their tongue can.
Yeah, but it's something different about when you're actually doing the thing.
Right.
Right. Like when I first got into my business, I didn't know what I was doing, but there is a, but at least I was trying, right?
Yeah,
It
exactly.
wasn't like I was selling someone on something that I wasn't going to do myself.
Yeah, blinker fluid only lasts so long. You got to replace it once a year.
So let's talk about the fourth one.
Fourth one is the one I'm in now.
Okay, so you've worked for how many companies?
I'll say legit 3.
Okay.
There's a couple others I worked for maybe a week or 2.
Okay, so you tried out other ones. For someone in that world, is that common to bounce around? I don't know. I don't know if,
From an owner's aspect,
yeah,
I think a third of our employees lasted a month or less.
really.
Yeah.
So just expect that. Like, because in my perspective of world, that's not normal.
Yeah.
But in your world, that is normal.
Right.
You're going to have, it's not a good fit. Or I guess, why do people not last?
There's such a variant level of companies to work for. If you're experienced in HVAC, you work for other companies, you know what you like. You know what programs that enhance their pay, whether it's good or not. And the people you talk to, your dispatcher, that's your partner. You're talking to that person every hour. If you don't like that person, if there's politics about everything, you don't want to work there. There's a certain tolerance of every person. But I think the expectation for the younger guys or gals that want to start a career, they think HVAC is just instant money. You're making $50 an hour right away. Money is not a thing to think about, and your job is just walking and changing filters. And then they get shooken up when what? I need to go to the crawl space right now? And do what?
Yeah.
It is a culture shock, I think, of guys that or people that just don't look enough into it. But when they decide, hey, this isn't for me, they'll go to another company, and hopefully it's a bigger company that's a lot more structured and I say white gloved.
If you're a newer tech, how do you know what to look for in the next company? Or you don't really know until you try it out.
Until you know what you don't want. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
You don't really know because it's kind of like when those companies you worked for like a week,
Mhm.
how did you first find, did you just go to the owner and you're like, hey, I'll come work for you?
They reach out to me.
So they,
It's a weird network of owners in HVAC. A lot of them know each other, but we all go to the same supply houses.
yeah,
And you see this younger guy in the truck, and you go, "Hey man, what do you do over here for this company?" And you tell you, and you get poachers a lot at these supply houses, and it's always in the middle of summer, middle of winter, when everybody needs somebody
yeah,
to take care of all this money. People want new AC done tomorrow,
yeah.
So there's always a season of poaching.
It is like,
For an employee, that's great. Hey, this guy wants to offer me more money than I'm making now. And all I hear is great things. I'll give you a signing bonus. Will you pay for your tools? Like, all you hear is the great things.
yeah,
But you didn't hear, oh, by the way, my wife's the other owner, and she wants it done a certain way. She doesn't care how you did it before. This is how it's going to be done.
yeah,
And you're like, dang, the orientation really told me all the negatives. And I'm like, ah. But there's always, like I said, there's always pros and cons to every company. You got to really find one that you can see yourself at long term, and obviously that's going to provide what your goals are.
yeah. And in your world, because you don't really need, I mean, you obviously want referral business because you own the business, but when you're a tech, you only have to deal with that customer for a little bit and you move on. In my world, if I went to 4 different companies, my owners would be like, yeah, we're not doing it.
Yeah, bro, you're a bit too much.
Yeah.
Moving around. That's so true.
Yeah.
It's definitely true. I think there's different companies too that incentivize bringing in new business, and it works for some people. But I'm here to do my 9 to 5 work.
Yeah.
I'm not here to expand the business.
So let's talk about the business you're with now. Did you start the business?
Yep, October 5th, 2015.
And I was curious how you got the name, but now it makes sense knowing that you wanted to be a
Fire and policeman.
Yeah.
Would have been great. I've been both.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I started that just really on a whim. That last company I worked for let me go for this bogus reason. And my wife now, I was dating at the time, was like, well, great. Finally you're out of that toxic place. Do you want to start your own?
What made it toxic?
I mean, she knew the owner was always one of the owners.
Does it usually come down to one of the owners just doing something weird or shisty?
Yeah. I mean, just being this kind of personality,
Yeah.
it's like hard to think you'd be here more than a year. But hey, the money keeps.
So for business owners who are listening, know that when your workers are quitting, it's usually not the job, it's the people.
It's always the people. I think the job, if you quit for the job, you would know that within the first month to 3 months. I think there's always a tiredness to it. You don't want to be in cross spaces attics every year or an office job all year long, but you decide that pretty quickly.
Yeah, they would just get out of the industry, but a lot of times business owners will be like, oh, it's them, not me. And it's like, well, it actually is you.
It could be them.
And
if you were better than me, if you were a better boss, you probably could have kept that person if you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a way to improve of loss of people, but yeah, most owners will say, eh.
So let's talk about you starting the business in 2015. Was that scary? What was those? How did you know you could, or because did your girlfriend help you, or what was that like?
No, it was exciting because I was becoming broke. And I loved it because it was always a challenge.
Yeah.
At that point, it was a game. Like, I knew I could make money. How am I going to do it this way?
You knew. What's cool is you knew anytime you have to start at zero. Like, there's always the YouTube videos like, if I had to ask a billionaire, if I had to start all over, right?
Yeah.
But the
first million.
But the one thing is, it's like, even if you have to start over, you still have those skills with you. So you're not starting at 21-year-old version of yourself. Because how old were you at that point?
25.
So then within 4 years,
yeah,
like you gained all that experience, all that knowledge, where if you would have tried starting an HVAC business at 21, probably wouldn't have gone very well.
The confidence is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
I have no experience to lean on. I don't know what I can do if this guy calls me. With the 25-year-old me, knowing what I could do, it was just, when is the phone going to ring? How do I get the phone to ring?
Hmm.
And that was a little bit of chunk of change, but
And you had the skills. You had the skills to actually do the thing.
yeah. Right.
So you start your own business. What was that first year like?
Lucrative. A lot of it was, there was no overhead, there's no assets, there's no,
Were you just the only guy at that point?
the only guy.
So you-
My wife, or my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, we switched cars. I had a sedan, she had a Toyota Tacoma. So I drove her truck to do all my calls. And that was great because being a new business, and
How'd you convince people to do business with you, being such a new company?
yeah, you get exactly. You get these sub companies that will resource referrals. They send you the lead, and you send them a price. So main thing I think was cost prohibitive. If you're the cheapest quote to do a tune-up, for a guy that's trying to sell his house, he needs a service done. Great, I'm your guy.
So first year you were just trying to get volume.
I'm trying to pay for my gas and make
Yeah.
sure I make $100 a day for myself.
Yeah, and you had pretty minimal overhead because
Yeah, really.
it was just you and the girl.
Yeah, exactly. And the girl wasn't being paid, so
And you don't own the parts, so you don't have to have much in inventory. You don't have really any inventory because everything's from the warehouse,
Right.
right?
so when I do a job and I need a part, I just go pick it up, come back and do it.
Yeah, so you're able to run pretty lean.
Very. Yeah, I didn't have any stock.
And then how did you get leads? You just Google, Yelp?
Google, and then referrals was when I started my first, I'd say 50 clients. I really, really used referrals.
Mm-hmm.
I asked for it. But the personal aspect I had on people was, I think, stellar. I tried to share as much about myself. People are curious. Hey, what kind of company are you? Like, they don't remember my name until I show up, and they're like, oh yeah, that's right. I hired you to do this. Come on in.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk to people that like to be interested in thermostat. And I have to be personal. My mom had the same thing. She took out a wall and threw it against the window, and it was still working. This is the most durable one you have.
Is that a made up story?
It's a made up story.
Yeah, my buddy, when I worked at Verizon, whenever he had to sell anything, is always this was my aunt's.
Yeah.
My aunt always had this.
I don't remember my mom doing anything with thermostat.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a cool little relation, and to me, it was just it was a nice way that people could see I'm a human.
Yeah.
I was obviously a younger guy, and I think a lot of people sort of took back like, oh, you're the owner. Here I am.
Yeah. You were the young guy, but again, it's the confidence that you had
Sure.
to do it.
And my key too is you don't want to be obvious that you're needing work. I always wanted to have that be my cover.
You're like, dude, could you please?
Yeah, exactly. I would just say, hey, I remember you said your neighbor was looking for the same thing. Did he actually get it done?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm not sure. And I just remember saying, well, if he doesn't, here, take an extra card. I'll even take off $20 for the service.
Yeah.
I'm going to be down the street next week. So I really wasn't going to be down the street next week. But hey, it made it convenient for him to.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Why as well? That guy called me that night.
Nice.
So it was different for me because every dollar I saw come in was just like $60 more, and then the bills every month would hit. I'm like, oh, taxes. All these fees you don't see as an employee
Yeah.
start hitting you. And luckily, I didn't have any employees at the time, but just being your own self worker, you have to realize what you have to budget separately and keep in mind like where you want to go. Are you going to be a one-man show forever? Well, then you got to start charging like you have another employee.
Yeah. Did you have someone mentoring you, or did you have resources, or you just?
All my bosses sort of burnt bridges with me.
Yeah.
Right, I burned bridges with them.
Yeah.
Whatever it was.
So you were. How far along did you do before you got a second guy?
Right after my first year, I think it was just shy of year one.
Was it someone else that was already experienced? And you're like, hey, dude, come work with me.
Brand new.
So you took a brand new guy, and you trained him. Is he still with you?
No, he moved, but essentially I think he would have been,
Yeah.
hopefully, but never know. Call me. But yeah, I mean, it was a great experience because I love people. I always wanted this vision of having a crew that knows me,
Yeah.
and I would take care of them differently than I've ever been taken care of as an employee.
Mm-hmm.
One of my biggest dreams is being able to help anyone that works here first or maybe works elsewhere get their first house here. That's a very rare one, I think, for anyone that's under 30.
Yeah.
But
It's way harder now.
it's way harder now. And so that accomplishment, I think, is extremely unique. And if that type of person, an employee wants to do that, that's unique.
They're like, hey, it's a shack, but it's your first. You're like, bro.
We got the AC covered. We'll get you a new furnace.
You're like,
next
bro, I
year.
don't want to live in your backyard. You're like, bro, I told you I'd help you buy a house.
You got it. But yeah, that was
But that's cool. As a business owner, you are trying to help them outside of work because that's something that's outside of work.
that's the best way to build long-term relationships with people. Better than outside of life or outside of your work life. But it doesn't always work for everybody. It's not always everybody's interest. So
Right.
I'm not as expansive on other ideas.
Yeah.
To me, it's just fundamentally, this is what I would want you to do. If you want to do it, take advantage of it.
So you took that first guy who literally knew nothing, and so he would just go out on every job with you.
Yeah.
And did you start charging a little bit more on your projects because you had that guy with you?
Not so much. Yeah. I don't
How did you absorb that cost that he cost?
the volume.
Okay.
And we had more work. We're working 12 hours a day, like long days.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, he wasn't being paid the best. He was being paid what I was being paid when first starting out. But, the overtime made up for it. And his experience was what I really leaned on. Him learning how to rip a furnace out, mock up the sheet metal for the new one going in, things that he could do here when I'm doing another estimate elsewhere.
So he would. How long of that would that have taken for him to get to the point where you were confident that he could do the basics?
3 months.
3 months, which is crazy because again, people go to school for 4 years with no practical
Short.
use. Where it's like, hey, if you get into the trades, literally, if you know nothing,
Right.
within 3 months, depending on the trade, even sooner.
It's relatively easy.
Yeah.
They're not touching the electrical.
But I'm saying within 3 months, you can be working independent.
For sure. They're ripping out sheet metal. They're pulling out, the more bulky things. But preparation's huge.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do in preparation without having.
So he's just observing, watching you do your thing.
Yeah. And then I told him, like, hey, man, you know what I did yesterday with this? Oh, yeah, I remember the piping has to go this way. And we assembled it like so. Oh,
Yeah.
great. You're doing it today.
Nice.
It was just more perfect because he can be here doing that. I'm over here doing this.
Right.
And he's learning.
Yeah.
Sitting and watching is not the best way to make money and learn.
Right. You got to do this. Yeah. You got to do the thing.
Exactly. So, yeah, it was definitely one of those great experiences.
I don't know this, but like, does he eventually have to get some kind of license?
Yeah.
Or is he licensed under you and you never have to like an electrician, you have to go take a test to be an actual electrician.
Exactly. So that
You have to do that in HVAC?
Most common requirement that you would hear as an HVAC tech is L&I is out there looking for you. They're going to look for your
The boogeyman, yeah.
The L&I card is the only one that's really required. Businesses have to have certain licenses
Right.
to pull permits or work in certain areas. But as a technician or lead, if someone rolls up from Washington State Labor and Industries, they're going to ask for your electrical card. And so HVAC has a specific class. As long as someone has that valid card on site, you're good.
Is there a book course you have to take to get that? Or is it literally just a fee?
It's an online course, but yeah, you can, or not online, but a computer, multiple answer questions, about 2 hours.
That's it?
That's it. And then add touch wires.
It's only 2 hours?
Well, it's 16 hours when you don't pass 8 times in a row.
8 times.
It's a tough test. It's open book, but the book is about, 1,000 pages. And you have to know where in the book.
It took you 8 times to pass?
Yeah, because you're looking at questions that are very similar.
It took you 8 times.
7, and then I passed down the 8. So yeah, we'll call it 7.
Is that common?
I think so. No, I don't know too many people that pass it the first time. I think 3 to 4 is your average.
So maybe who's ever designing this program needs to do a better job of teaching on the front end.
He's probably 90 years old because it's the same test from like 1980. No, it's updated per the NEC book. So you do have a lot of code changes that it goes into the test questions, but by God, man, it's by one word, there or they are. That was the difference. And you have to know where in the book it says it so you know which there it was.
Really?
Man,
So it's not even really practical stuff.
you don't need to know any of the actual knowledge of it. You just know how to find it in the book. That's the skill set that this test teaches you, is how to find terms in this electrical book
That's interesting.
within time, because it is timed. You have
Yeah.
about 10 minutes per question or 5 minutes per question.
It took you. Next time I have a tech
Homeschool.
come where I'm gonna be like, I'm like, how many times? So any homeowner, if you ever have a tech come over, ask them how many times it took them.
And they're gonna go, what test?
If they don't know the test, they'll hire them. If it took them more than three
Hey,
times.
I'm sorry, I gotta cancel. I got a family emergency.
That's
I would definitely say that license really doesn't give me much more knowledge than anyone that's been doing the job for the same amount of time.
agreed. I agree.
It saves you a lot of money and liability.
Right.
And then your employees start asking, like, hey, what does that mean? Like, I can get fined and the company gets fined? Like, there's penalties that go to the technician and the...
So when did he take that test? How far along in the process?
My first hire,
Yeah.
he wasn't with me long enough to take it.
Oh,
And then there's licenses that you have to, like nowadays, you have to be a different level of electrician, and then you have to be an administrator. If you don't have those two powers combined, you can't even dock hours.
so you've done all that, right?
Yeah, with all the companies I've worked for, you have to get those hours credited.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't remember what made me take the test, but I did at one point, and losing it, not renewing it, is starting all over.
Yeah, so you always renew them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know with the electricians, there are so many hours they have to do. Everything has to be, but it's not. It doesn't seem as strict with HVAC.
It's the same exact thing. They're just a lot larger. So they'll have a 4 or 8 hour test for the journeyman 01 electricians. I'm 06.
Mm-hmm.
01, 02, they have to do a whole day's worth of testing.
Yeah, but also the cumulative hours on job.
Twice the amount. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you basically have to be in this industry for 8 years as an 01 electrician to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be with a company that long that already had those credited people to dock those out.
Yeah, but you don't have to do all that as much with HVAC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, second, third year, you're getting more workers, or
More workers. I'm starting to save up money to have an office. Thinking about doing plumbing, and next thing you know, the first company I worked for, my old colleague that was a plumber there, and my old boss from that first company there, the one that's been there for 15, 18 years, end up picking them up on that third year. So now I have a master plumber running the plumbing division, and I have my old boss.
why would you want plumbing? For the water heaters?
More revenue, and yeah.
Was it just water heaters, or what other plumbing would you
No,
do?
they did the whole house piping, they did fixtures, they did anything to do with plumbing.
Okay, so you did run that out of your shop for a little bit, but you don't do that. You don't really specialize on that.
No, I don't. I personally am not a plumber, and I know how much issues came out of doing plumbing,
Yeah.
and I'm not with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Water heating is my boundary of expertise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that was a cool experience until
Was that weird for the guy who had all that experience to work under you?
it was really cool. I wouldn't say weird. I think for him, he was probably like, how am I doing this? But hey, he left that company that he worked for so long with
Mm-hmm.
to go work for his rinky-dink company that just started 2 years prior. And it was a good change for him, I think.
Mhm.
I could tell it was a good change personally.
Mm-hmm.
And he was dreaded over there, and they ran him like a rag doll in the career of things. And he really spruced up the way that people viewed us. Because he had a huge reputation. Everybody knew him.
Yeah.
And when they heard that he moved over to Braxton's company, like, what's going on over there? So then I started picking up other guys that used to work under him at that company, and they joined on. They brought others together, and it was a cool little camaraderie of old people that used to work previously at this company, and now,
Because you had built a culture that people liked.
yeah.
What's a good culture look like to you versus a bad culture?
Bad culture, I think it most will deter from our cutthroat corporate businesses, the ones that make you like the biggest understanding of if you're going to be here longer than a year, it's because you're selling while you work. That's black and white how it is. If there's none of that here, and they still are making what they are targeting to make, and they're happy about not having that pressure of making a certain revenue number, and they're just doing their job,
Mm-hmm.
they stay long enough. But then, you get people that want that commission life.
Mm-hmm.
And they come here and like, you don't really pay as much as the other big companies. Like, well, I don't want you guys to target a number on our customers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that really doesn't give you a good core value over time. It's
Mm-hmm.
just you're setting yourself up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think it's just unique to find someone that wants to be part of that kind of culture. You know, being honest-hearted, and getting paid for what.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people prefer, especially if they enjoy doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
they just want to do the work. Yes, they need to get paid,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're not careful enough, if you're in a high sales environment, your morals will change.
Right.
Sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly,
Right.
but your morals will change towards that company. Like Wells Fargo got sued for over $1 billion because of their sales tactics. And it's like, well, did everyone in that company, were they all just bad people? It's like, no, they just were. If you have certain incentives and your managers are telling you to do a certain thing, because what they were doing? They were opening up all these fake accounts. So let's say you customer go in and you're like, hey, I just need a checking account. They're like, oh, no problem. I'll set you up with 2 checking accounts, 2 savings account, CD account, like 2 credit cards. And you're like, oh, okay. They're like, it's the package. Okay. And so these customers were ending up with all these accounts that they didn't even realize that they signed for. Because you go to the bank, you're trusting the bank to do. Yeah, they open you that 1 checking account, and then you go home and you have like 6 accounts, and you're like
12 cards.
yeah.
Where's all this?
And so that's where it's like, yeah, because customers are trusting you to be the expert and trusting you to do what's best for you.
Sure.
And that's where sales gets a little tricky, because if you are skilled at communication, then you understand how to manipulate in such a way that's beneficial to you.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's a guy, Grant Cardone, he was known to be like the sales car guy. Have you heard of him?
Maybe.
And there's a new guy now named Andy Elliott. And I've listened to him as far as I want to be aware of the tactics that they're using now.
Sure.
And it's like, if a fighter, let's say you're a professional fighter, and you go out in the street and some guy punches you, you obviously block it. But if you beat that guy up, guess who goes to jail? You, because you're the professional fighter,
Right.
and you knew how to subdue him, and you knew better than to just beat him up.
Yeah.
But that also works in verbal communication. There's some people out there that are highly skilled at communication. So when they go meet some average Joe, they will destroy him in manipulation, because they will know exactly, if I say this, I'll get this, I'll do this.
Right.
And so the average person isn't trying to go get in a fight with the sales guy. The average person is just saying, hey man, can you help me out?
Right.
But if they meet some scrupulous person that's like, oh, I'll help you out, and then you end up getting 10 different accounts when you're like, dude, I just needed 1. Right?
Exactly.
You go install a furnace and you get 2 furnaces. Furnace is a backup. You're like, backup furnace? Okay. And you got like a AC and a heat pump. They're all backup.
By the way, you have 2 tanks under your stairs now.
3 water heaters. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. No, that's definitely I think why a lot of changes go in corporate world.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the nature of things are changing.
Well, that's why people you get multiple estimates,
Right.
because that kind of helps you see, like, okay, that company
Is whack.
because they're like double.
Yeah. Right. And they're offering half of what
Yeah.
the company.
Have you ever, in recent history, given an estimate and then you see someone else who has a way lower estimate?
Yeah.
And then, so how are they able to charge so much less?
What
What are they doing to be able to significantly, like, I get it if it's a few hundred.
if it's a few thousand,
Yeah.
I'd put myself back to when I started the company. I was selling a furnace for $2,000,
Mm-hmm.
including taxes. I made $200 as a one man doing the job and covering all of my,
Yeah.
you know,
So, some of that, they just have less overhead and you can't compete with that.
that to me is the most reasonable answer. Otherwise, back to the third company I worked for, they were making huge volumes. Cash flow was huge, but they were realizing the net loss and decline is happening.
Hmm.
So I mean, with the large volume of money they bring in monthly, they don't see like, oh man, we lost $200 in a month. They might be saying, okay, we lost 2 grand, but it doesn't really matter. We have another $50,000 coming in a week.
Hmm.
So business changes, and it could be a strategy. It's sort of you're taking over the market to squeeze out your competition,
Hmm.
and things do change.
So those estimates that are like 1.5, almost two more than you, why are their estimates so much higher?
I can only say
Is it most of it profit driven at that point?
profit driven is always part of it. I don't think that's ever going to come out of any price, but your overhead has to dictate how much you're going to charge for every job.
Mm-hmm.
There's a program that's very common in the HVAC world that a lot of business owners go through and they use, and then decide whether they like it or not. It's not looking at the customer's home individually. This furnace is really a $30,000 one, and the one next door is 3,200. It's grouping everything your salesman sees and averaging a cost,
Mm.
and that's how you sell. So I mean that can make a lot more for a business that is selling, but people are getting smarter. Homeowners and clients are definitely doing more research,
Right.
and the price differences are just becoming very, very off scale. Range wise, it's, yeah, like you said, it could be $1,000 difference on a hot water tank.
Mm.
And that's crazy for some people to realize. But as a bigger company, if you can sell one of those $5,000 tanks when really it should be a $2,000 tank, if you sell one of those every 10 customers, it's still worth it.
Yeah.
That's what they really practice on, because the volume's 10 times more than a company like mine.
Mm.
So for me, if I only see 10 people instead of 100, I'm taking my time, being more detailed to hopefully get half of those clients to go with us. But we're not making as much profit
Mm.
as those big box names would. So, but that changes. Every business is different.
Mm.
Their needs might be different than mine. 3 years ago, mine was different as far as a goal, and now we're changing to a different type of company or a different threshold of what we.
Yeah. So you kind of hinted this before. Your company you got big, you got fairly medium sized, where you had a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then what happened when you hit that point?
We didn't check our pricing as often. So, typically a budget report will be brought to a manager once a month.
Mhm.
At least. My manager for plumbing was not a day-to-day manager. I mean, he was the lead plumber. So he's out in the field a lot.
Yeah, that's what he enjoyed. He
Yeah.
enjoyed going out there and doing the thing.
And me being, a partner of his with our company being together, I didn't have the experience to realize he needs to be more managerial when it comes to his department.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't realize he was losing thousands of dollars a week.
Mm.
People were still getting paid, money was still coming in, but he didn't realize, okay, well, once a month bill for the supply house hits, you owe them 16 grand. Well, 16 grand. I only got 18 grand in the bank, and that's where a month to month realization of how much your overhead was did not justify how much he was charging.
Mm.
And
So he wasn't charging enough.
he wasn't charging enough. He really didn't let his guys learn strictly with him. There's a lot of free plumbers doing whatever they want,
Mm.
and it created something called callbacks. And so we're not a company that's going to charge you for our mess up.
Yeah.
We are going to eat the cost, and we did that a lot. We got full. We were eating big on callbacks. And I will say, the HVAC side wasn't always perfect, but it can only supplement so much that we lost with plumbing.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was just like a drama thing of plumbers and HVAC, and if I'm the owner of both, who does this person answer to? And I think there was just a lot of uneasy feelings that nobody spoke about
Yeah.
between our departments, and they all left.
The plumbers, they all
All
left.
plumbers, yeah, they started their own company, and they were all gone.
So that was probably like a good problem.
It was great. I mean, it was crumbling at a point to where, like, hey man, what are you gonna do? We're up and out. But
Were you stuck with a pretty large bill?
I was stuck with a large bill, but the money that was supposed to stay to pay for some of that bill left with them.
Right. That's what I figured.
So yeah, I mean, there's always logistics to like how businesses should be ran, and I ignored a lot of it to be more trusting of the guy that I worked with, and that didn't pan out. So just HVAC after that. I mean, we went from 22 total employees down to 12,
Mm-hmm.
12 to 14. And we just stuck that size for a couple more years. And that Linwood office we were in, it was right next to the convention center. Beautiful facility, huge storage, but man, it was 2,400 a month when we started
Yeah.
the lease. The increases went up to like 3,800 after 2.5 years of being there.
Yeah.
It was like, how can you do this?
Right.
Like, it was not gonna be this much in 3 years,
Yeah.
actually. And so yeah, I learned again. Like,
Did you have stuff stolen too?
yeah, our cameras caught it too, and that's
Yeah.
like the most like wrenching thing.
Yeah.
Watching this
What did they steal?
copper.
Yeah.
And all our trucks, we used to keep all our trucks there side by side. Thought it was safe, it's in a lit area. We have cameras.
Isn't there like a police station nearby?
Yeah, right down the street.
Yeah.
But
They just don't care.
it's right under the nose, not in front of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just small instances that set you back financially. They just pile on and pile on. And I felt like this company was going to close probably 10 times
Mm.
its whole duration. Just kind of like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Go back to work? But then, just be perseverant. You downsize when you have to, just to give it last too raw. And then things pick up again. Summertime hits again, you're hot. People calling back, like just this great vibe of line of consistency starts working again. And great. All right, let's bring on electricians now, and it really changes your flow quite a bit when you don't give up. Like, that's why I've learned a lot. So my wife will always tell me every time there's a problem, she's like, please, you don't remember like when we had this and this and this happen, and look, babe, we got out of it.
Yeah.
This is nothing. It's not that.
So what I hear you saying, it's hard.
It's a walk in the park sometimes, but
And that's what people like, oh, I want to become a business owner. And you're like,
I love that. I do. And there's a funny story. There's a company out there that the owner and I had started first response already. He was supposed to be hired on.
yeah.
And he had a very tunnel visioned idea of what owning a business would be. And I told him, hey, just tell me $150 with you being straight. There's a lot of things you got to think of, and it's hard to manage that while you're working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just got to take your own pace. Yeah, man, I know what you mean. But this guy did this already with his company, and I'm confident I can do it. And this guy was not. He was a salesman selling stuff, but he says he's a technician, but he's never done that. Like, his skill set was scary.
Yeah.
He started his company. And I see their company out there here and there, and I'm like, man, they changed quite a bit in a year. And from what I understand, there's an investor that took over, sort of revamped the company, and then they were able to bring on professionals. So he was able to hire experienced people onto this company and, create a culture very quickly. And it seems to be working well for them, except for the jobs that I get calls on. And, I'm never going to say anything about like history of me and this company owner, but when I see that name is, the company that was at this client's house before, and I'm like, oh, can I see what they did? And then I'm looking like, all right, David was here. And so, there's just certain ways that I'm like, that I can tell there's a lot of stress going on with certain business owners.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to say that to another business owner, and I'm sure he won't to me, but
Yeah.
the stress is not something that you would want to deal with and then have to go to work the next day and have to like not show it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think there's a lot of owners out there that are just yelling randomly throughout the day, like, God, why are we doing this right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Have you ever gone off on someone?
my wife. And that's another thing I would always recommend. Don't ever work with family or your spouse. It's never gonna be enhancing to your relationship. Unless that person is completely a different department you don't ever see, great, sure.
It's extremely difficult.
Oh, it's not.
There's a few people out there that have, on paper, they seem to be able to do it,
Sure.
but statistically, it's usually not very beneficial
Yeah,
to the relationship.
of course. Yeah, I think the only times I had to yell at my wife was because I'm just like, you're my wife and I have to go home to you, and this is not gonna be good, like to go to sleep. It's really stressful, but she's the one she's in it. She's not gonna say, all right, F it, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I quit, it's over. Like, she's gonna persevere to do it. And that's what always made me feel like guilty. Like, why am I an asshole?
Yeah.
and there had to be a change. The thing was, I was trying to create that replacement for her
Hmm.
behind her back, per se.
So
And
she didn't
then,
even know.
I mean, I didn't tell her, like, hey, I'm going to find you a replacement. Because, she wanted to work here and she loved it. And that's cool. But I mean, after you get pregnant again, maybe I'm just going to bring in people to replace you while you're on maternity leave. And then I didn't tell her this, but like, you don't have to come back.
Was that hard for her?
I think over a year of not working, it was because she was, essentially stay-at-home mom after a while,
Mm-hmm.
and then she
She's
was
like, "Am I getting that job back?" You're like,
she's like, "Wait, you're going to the Mariners game with the team?" I'm like, "Yeah." Can I count? Like, you're not really with the team anymore. No, I'm kidding.
"Here's your pink slip.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got promoted to full-time mom and wife."
yeah. No, there's a big change when you work together every day, and I did love not having to talk to her about work
Yeah,
because work is, there's always problems. I'm the janitor.
yeah. You're problem solving, and that's is a quote I really like. It's you're paid for the type of problems you solve. Like if you want to make money,
Yeah.
it's go solve problems. And this one guy, like Alex Ramosi, he's like, if you want to make good money, solve rich people problems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, because it's like you could sell this car, you could sell a boat, or you have to be good at selling that whatever thing.
Right.
But he's like, rich people pay better.
Right. Yeah.
Because the people who aren't solving problems generally don't make as much money, or if you're solving really easy problems, people aren't going to pay you that much for it.
Yeah. And they'll do it themselves.
So if you want to make more money, you figure out how to make yourself more useful and
Yeah.
solve those problems. Where most people aren't going to go try to figure out how to replace a furnace or an AC. So you're always going to AI is not taking over your job anytime soon.
Well,
Robots.
there's some YouTube videos out there that are really pushing the line there.
Yeah, yeah. No one's doing that.
How to install mini splits. Oh man, there's a lot of videos like that.
Yeah,
But hey, you get called to those jobs and you're like, who did this?
and they're like, YouTube.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely a journey. I think a business ownership it's got its pros and cons. Not everybody's built for it.
Yeah,
But if you do last, it's not whether you make it or not. There's no making it. I think
Yeah.
if you last, you find the ways that it works for you, whether it's financially or having time off, find that comfort zone pretty quickly.
are you still learning the install? Have you mastered a lot of the install stuff, so you're not really seeing anything new anymore?
No, there's no such thing. You're always learning new.
So there's always
There's heat pumps that are coming with freaking iPads inside of it
yeah.
that are going to be changing the way you communicate and what thermostats have to go with that.
So the learning never stops.
Never. No, I think it's more often that you're having to learn than repetitively doing the same thing.
And then there's probably certain manufacturers you're probably a little bit more comfortable with as far as repairing.
I'd say there are less companies, like brands, that I don't want to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's newer businesses out there that are manufacturing these mini splits.
Mm-hmm.
They're all the same coding or design from one, specific design, and they're just slapping their name on it. They all come with different error codes, different manuals. So, I mean, you're looking at these units the same and stuff.
Yeah.
But I
The
don't
principle is the same, but it's
yeah, but I don't memorize like what that error code means.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to troubleshoot a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, things don't change. Like every year, every 3 years, it's just randomly when the evolution of units get better.
All right. So let's switch gears a little bit. I'm a homeowner, and what's good maintenance tips for my HVAC, water heater, furnace, AC, mini split? Should they be treated? Should you actually flush your water heaters regularly? I don't think most people do, but should you? Does that actually help the longevity of it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the maintenance tips like flushing your tank, it's easy to do, and when you are utilizing it and you're regular with it, I can't tell you a parallel universe that person that didn't do maintenance would have had 2 years or 1 year less of lifespan, but it is going to help your system for sure. There are some ways to not do it correctly that will cause something to break or cause damage in your home. So it's really knowing how to do it correctly. Have a professional do it first in front of you, and then do it yourself from there on.
So you can. That's probably something someone could learn.
100%.
And
All
then-
water tanks, that's easy to flush. Filters in all your systems, whether it's in the ceiling or it's in the furnace door, very simple and it's very reasonable to say.
How often are you going to homeowners that aren't doing it? I know tenants probably don't do a very good job, but
Best number, I'd say the third aren't doing it.
so 30% aren't, 33%.
I'm pulling out Brillo carpets of filters.
And you're like, dude, you didn't even know you had one?
I know they didn't. Because
Yeah.
It said 1990. This guy was born in 1999.
So you're still finding homeowners that aren't changing out their filters.
Yeah. And it's sort of sad because they're very similar demographic. They're people that haven't taken care of their whole house.
Yeah.
And this is just one thing that blended in with the rest.
Mm.
You know, and a lot of immaculate houses, yeah, sure, they can find a filter that's not changed, but it typically will come up every 5 years. You know,
Yeah.
new homeowner, new tenant, things get addressed. But you know, those homeowners that have been doing the same thing for 30 years and their house has never been improved since it's been built. Like that's where you find big problems like that.
Mm.
But doesn't affect. I don't think maintenance affects too much of how things fail. Everything has a lifespan on it.
Right.
Your motor's going to go out. Sure, it probably could have ran better, more efficient, and smoother if the filter was changed regularly, but it's going to fail regardless.
Yeah.
But maintenance will help
Mm.
last longer, 100%.
For someone that's interested in getting into this industry, what would you tell them? I'm a young guy. I'm thinking about not going to college. What would you say to them? Be like, hey, embrace the suck. It is going to suck. Or
Yeah, absolutely.
be eager. Like, what characteristics of people that you've hired? What are some of the characteristics because you're betting on the horse.
Yeah.
You don't quite know how they're going to turn out. So what are you looking for as someone that hires?
I hate to say it, but it's really an age thing. If I'm talking to a group that was, say, 30 and older, you want to go in this career for one thing, and I think it's going to be happiness. Happiness comes with being paid correctly, having enough time off to go home with your family. Working hard, you're already expecting that. I think everybody should expect that when you go into any trade. Embrace the suck. Yeah, of course. As a young person, let's just say prior to 30 years old, don't give up on this trade until you've been through it a solid 2 years. Solid 2 years. And of course, picking the right company is a big part of that. But going through this industry in 6 months, you're not seeing the whole benefit of what you've spent in 6 months already investing your time to do. And 2 years isn't long. But as a young guy, sure, 2 years is the eternity. But 2 years is so much advancement. You're moving up. You're probably getting paid a lot more. You're becoming more valuable that you realize how much more valuable you are. And that brings a certain sort of pride that hopefully that's why you came into this industry. You want to be a man, like the J-man, the journeyman. You want to be the guy that they count on. Give it 2 years and you will see yourself falling into that spot. And that should really incentivize you to stay.
Yeah, and if you compare and contrast that to college, it's 4 years with nothing guaranteed at the end.
Of course.
But this is 2 years where you're getting paid, where you're learning, and then 2 years down the road, you didn't waste anything. You're like, oh, I either liked it and I want to progress, or I didn't like it, but at least I have a practical skill that maybe if I don't continue in this trade, I can be the guy that replaces my own furnace if I want to.
Exactly. And
So that's good. 2 years, that's it. People go to college for 4 years and walk out with a piece of paper
and a big bill
that literally has almost no benefit, depending on the degree.
Sure. No, I agree. I think schooling extended after high school is a very tough decision to make because it's a big devotion and it's a lot of financial strain after you're done, or if you drop out. You know, it's a big decision, and you don't know what's right. You know, I can only say from my experience, I probably would be 5 years behind in my advancement in any career path I choose, and that probably could have offset. Just from the 2000s that we lived through. You know, we've been through a pandemic. Having schooling before that, man, you shift your careers quite a bit. Most people might, have lost all those 4 years from changing career. You know, so I would just say the benefit's immediate to picking a trade or a skill that you want to invest your time to, not your money.
Yeah. No, I like it. this podcast is called The Game of Life, and I like asking people in your limited experience of life, you're not 70, 80, but you've been through a lot being a business owner, the way you're raised. To you, what is life? Life is dot dot dot.
Life is your short window that we know of, your short window to maximize your happiness. That's really it.
Hmm.
I mean, that's how I see life. I'm happy. I'm able to give happiness to my kids, my wife, my family. That's what we all strive off of, is being a human, being happy. I'm happy when I eat, happy when I sleep. Sometimes I lose happiness when I'm going through hard work,
Yeah.
phases. But that's really my bar of life. Is if you're not happy and you're not going through life, I'd say smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, some people don't decide to live any longer. And that's where you got to decide. What do I need to do to be happy and be here as long as I can?
Mm.
Work out, be healthy, have a great career, have family. All that contributes to using this window of life. But yeah, it starts with happiness.
Mm. I like it. Any last thoughts on the industry, or is there anything that you have found that was peculiar or just in life or even in the industry that you're in that most people wouldn't know or unless you're actually in it or doing the thing?
I mean, you choose an industry, whether it's HVAC, electrical, plumbing. I personally looked at Google, how much does a plumber make? Generalized number is going to pop up. You look at software engineer, you look at engineers, analysts, complete opposite column. I know that this generation of people coming, like say if you're 10 right now or you're 18, you're coming into this generation of trades, there's going to be such a shortage of blue collar workers. Your pay is going to increase. The workload is there. You're never going to be short on work. Now is the time to invest into it if it's a thought. Okay, because I don't know really what it takes to become a software engineer. Someone works at Amazon, Microsoft, but I think I could achieve it if I have to study that or prep myself to become one. Here, you just put your experience in. Like we said, you get paid for it, you get the experience. If you decide this is good, it's going to be nothing but greater in the next 10 years, 20 years. It's not a job that you're going to become an instant millionaire, but there are millionaires that are in trades after their 20-year tenure.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the numbers wise, maybe a million, maybe more, but you're comfortable and you can definitely have side quests in life.
Mm-hmm.
Personally for me, it's real estate. I'll buy a house, flip it, because the skills you have and learned cut the cost of rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And use that advantage while you're young.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be supplied all that through your company you work for. So don't take too long. Don't, get high and play video games for 5 years and then decide now's the time to think about it and then execute now, because there's no better time than now because of everybody that's retiring in the next 5 years, 10 years. The companies are going to need to fill them up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to pay top dollar because other companies are paying top dollar for these prospects in HVAC.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think I told you on the phone, but so again, I meet a lot of people in the sauna, and there was this young guy in there who just graduated college and trying to get a job, pretty hard with the pandemic and everything. But I asked him where he worked, and he was like, I work at LA Fitness.
No.
And I was like, is that what you wanted to do? He's like, no, dude, I put in my application all these different places, and I have this degree, but pretty much useless. And this is literally the only job I could get, was being a sales rep at LA. And I was like, man, did anyone ever talk to you about the trades when you were young? And he's like, no, it wasn't a thing that they talked about in high school. My counselor, it was always got to get to college, got to put in your application, got to take the SAT.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw him either yesterday or today. He finally, I think he's putting in his 2 weeks because he got another job, but it's another sales job selling bearings. Nothing he's interested in, but it's like that guy could have had a totally different route if his high school counselor would have been like, hey, if you're not really that interested in college, there's this thing over here called blue collar work.
Yeah.
And like you said, you can make really good money. Because I listen to a whole plethora of podcasts, and they are saying that it's with people always thought the white collar jobs are safe. The people with coding or that kind of experience were safe, and it's like this thing called ChatGPT. It's smarter than lawyers. It's smarter than all these people.
Right.
And it is going to be able to take over those jobs because they can just compute at a much higher level.
Right.
Think of all the sales tactics that Andy knows or Grant Cardone knows. Well, this guy's going to know that.
Right.
And do it better than you ever could because he's
Right.
going to remember. He's going to have instant access to all knowledge
Yeah.
and be able to regurgitate it way better, faster than you are.
That's strike up a key.
Yeah. And so, yes, all these people, there was, a decade where getting your software degree was amazing, but now it's like, dude, you're just going to get replaced, or someone who already has that degree is going to be able to use ChatGPT to then exponentiate whatever they can do.
Right.
But with blue collar, that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. Not yet.
And like you said, there's a shortage. Like I have to have this conversation with the owners all the time when they're like, why the cost this, or why does it take so long for this? And it's like, because there's a shortage. So companies can charge whatever they want because they're like, why does it cost so much to get a plumber out there?
Yeah.
I was like, I want you to go find plumbers, call them and ask them how quickly you can make it out to your property.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you mean it's not instant? I was like, no, we built the reputation with a plumbing company, so they will.
Right.
But I guarantee if you just start calling plumbing companies, good luck trying to get them out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Even my real estate guy, he texted me earlier this week and he's like, bro, I need a plumber. And he was amazed that the number I gave him, they came out the same day.
Right. Yeah. No, it makes a difference for sure.
And so, yes, we're not, whoever in the media or whatever, they're not expounding enough that like there is a shortage of workers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the people that are coming up, we're not building that traits in them.
Sure.
To embrace the suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's not always fun.
Right.
But it is rewarding. Like when I did the podcast with the carpenter, he's like, it's cool to look at a building that you are part of and be like, I built that.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're just not putting that into kids where they're like, oh, I want to be a TikTok influencer.
Right.
And you're like, what?
Yeah. The biggest weakness of this generation of kids coming up is just quitting.
Yeah.
I can easily just quit. I don't even want to talk to you. I can text you, say I'm done. Don't have to see him again. No confrontation. That's such a hard thing to have to just see because I can't do it. I'm not going to force them to come back and talk to me. But
it's like, you can't quit. I don't allow you.
Yeah, exactly. At least just talk to me.
Yeah.
Like people to exit without even saying anything.
Because it is hard. There is some hardness in it, but we're not raising kids.
That wasn't a choice for, I don't know, me growing up.
Yeah. I mean, you were living out of your car and it's like, it's either live in my car or go work for myself. I would prefer to work for myself, but we're not putting that like trait of overcoming and being resilient. And I think that's why it's hard for these kids to think about the trades.
Yeah. It's hard to do things that you're comfortable doing.
They've never been told no. They've never been told, hopefully my tenant or future tenant doesn't see this, but they wanted to paint a bedroom. It's like, no, that's not a thing. That's not going to happen.
Right.
What? Little Sally can't paint her bedroom? Little Sally's not going to live there for that long. Right? So now she has to tell her child no because she never told her no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely different. And hopefully that's something that we would have to mold to.
Well, I'm hoping our generation does a better job with our kids because we see the generation that's 10 years behind us and we're looking at them and we're like, they're not very...
We got to overcorrect with the generation behind them.
So hopefully, but you're 100% right. That's why I'm doing podcasts like this because I want to highlight the trades. It's a thing. I've done podcasts with older guys and they're like 60s and 70s. And they're like, yeah, when I went to high school, they did promote the trades. And
there was probably an overflux of work to load back then.
They promoted the trades. Hey, there's college, but there's this trade thing. But now we've gone to the point where they're not even mentioning it to kids. And so they're like, okay, I'll go to college.
Right.
And they completely skip the trades. And then finally at age 30, they're like, oh, okay, nothing else worked.
Yeah.
Let me try a trade.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just be different. If you can.
Yeah.
Just how it pays out.
All right, cool. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Glad we were able to do it.
Yeah.